First, your speed came out as 117.7, which is above elite man's average here. So elite men here include the tour players, college players, and teaching professionals.
Okay.
So for your height, you're generating more speed than the average. Also, the absolute speed is also higher, which is good. Now, one thing, your overall swing time is slight over 800 milliseconds,
Okay.
which is really good.
Yeah.
So I want to see a faster backswing.
Yeah.
However, if you look at this is the clever speed pattern here. In the backswing from here to here, it's almost symmetric. Instead, try to keep the maximum speed in the backswing more close to the top here.
Okay.
So the right side of the midpoint here.
Okay.
So initially you can start gradually here, but then speed up. Then you have a really active transition to a downswing.
Got it.
So that's one thing I see here. And then event-wise, here 7 and 8 are actually almost together here. 7 is on the way down when the lead arm is parallel to the ground.
Okay.
And then 8 is when the club is vertical in the frontal view. When these happen almost at the same time, that means you lose wrist cock early. So, or you don't have enough wrist cock to start with. So, when you have good separation between 7 and 8, that means you still keep the club close to your body on the way down, and then letting it go.
Okay.
That way you can use the wrist
Got it.
better. So when these two happen quite close to each other, then you're fairly, either you don't have enough wrist cock or you're dragging it. So then we'll be able to see this in the top view here. Now this large rectangle is your swing plane. It's inward, about 6 degrees inward here. This is your hand motion plane. So we can track the hand trajectory, and then using that we can calculate the plane.
Okay.
Your hand motion plane is way inward here. 17 degrees, this is too much.
Yeah.
So this means you're relying on your muscles. Okay? And also, so between the swing plane and hand motion plane, you have this angle gap. It's an inward direction gap. When you have large inward direction gap, that means you have the tendency of spiral swing. So typically you will see large deviation of the club head from the swing plane here in the downswing, but small deviation in the follow through here. So, sometimes the club head goes actually below the swing plane here. So this is called the spiral swing. And then this is when everything's aligned along the swing plane here. So this straight line is the swing plane, calculated from the club head motion from here to here. So horizontal to horizontal here. And then when you start the backswing, your club head goes below the swing plane initially. But my typical recommendation is moving it along the swing plane here.
Okay.
But this may be actually in the true down the line view, this may be okay. But because we are aligning everything along the swing plane is inward.
Right.
So that's why it may look that way.
I see.
So from here, still it's a bit flatter than this line here, but so the relative to the swing plane is going flat here. Rather, try to move it along the swing plane here. So generally, when you are in the setup position, the swing plane passes through your elbow here, right elbow. So if this is the swing plane here, and then try to move the club head along this plane instead of going below that. Okay? So when relative to the swing plane, it goes flat here. Eventually, you have to lift this up, and this easily leads to this crossover alignment here. So at this position here, your hands are deviated from the swing plane about this much, but your club head is deviated quite a bit here. So this is essentially crossover alignment. So regardless of the size of the backswing, when the club head stays more away from the swing plane, there is a crossover. This is because relative to the swing plane, you go flat, and then eventually you have to lift this up. And then as you lift up, if the right elbow goes high here, automatically you have this crossover alignment. So if here's the hand position initially, you want to bring the hands somewhere here, then try to go straight to that position here. Then you'll be able to bring the club head a bit higher.
Okay, got it.
And also when you move the club head a bit higher, then by using the shallowing motion, you can bring this down easily. But when you go low here, then you have to lift this up. Then you cannot come back down. So the swing plane happens like this.
Got it.
And also, if you look at this curve here, the green line here, the green line shows the relative position of the club head to the hands in this direction here. So this shows off-plane motion. And then the green, so this is end of pelvis rotation. The first one is when you finish the pelvis rotation. 2 is at the top. Between the end of pelvis rotation and the top of backswing, this is the transition phase. In the transition phase, you still need to have good shallowing motion. So the club head should move toward the swing plane relative to the hand. But as you can see in this pattern here, before this, it keeps moving away from the swing plane, both the hands and the club here. So it's not changing much during the transition phase. But those who have a really good pattern, bring the club head a bit higher here, and then during the transition phase, dropping the club head reasonably. So then you have a shallowing of the club head relative to the hands during the transition phase. So this will drop quite a bit here because the green line shows the relative position. So this will drop quite a bit by the time you reach the top of backswing. But in this one, you are maintaining it. That means it's just basically you're pulling in this direction rather than dropping it here. Okay. So it's a more muscle-driven swing here. So as a result, when we align everything along the swing plane here, then this is the club head path in early downswing here. When you draw a straight line here, then the path almost looks symmetrical. That means that you're pulling it with your arms. But if you let it drop, and then later when you use wrist well, then what happens is this quickly moves toward the swing plane, and then comes down, and then have nice planar motion here. So when the shape of the club head trajectory looks symmetrical here, then it's basically arm-driven swing. And then you're basically dragging the club down. So that's why it's hard to introduce this shallowing motion. Okay? So that's what I see. In terms of slope of the swing plane, it's about 48.7 degrees. For your height, the average is somewhere between 47 and 48 degrees. So this is reasonable. But I want to see a more sort of shallowing motion of the club head. When that happens, you can use the wrist better. And then with that, you can gain a lot of speed from the wrist motion. And also, from this one, we can see that you don't have large enough backswing here. That means you don't have much wrist cock to start with. So if we look at that one, let's see here. So this is top of backswing here. This is the swing plane view. And then your club is not crossing the horizontal line here. So this is insufficient wrist cock here. Then on the way down, now you are dragging the club with your arms. So pretty much your arms and the club form one single unit, one rigid unit. Then as you pull this, the club will go away from your body. So what happens is, with this motion here, 7 and 8 are happening close to each other. It's because you don't have enough wrist cock to start with. Then you have disadvantage because this pink line is the wrist angular velocity. And this is elite man's average. And your wrist angular velocity is less than elite man's average. But your club angular velocity is higher. So this angular velocity coming from somewhere else. That's from the body rotation as one unit. But you're not using the wrist that effectively.
I see.
So when you use wrist more, then this goes up, then this goes even higher.
I see.
You know, assuming that you maintain the body motion reasonably. Okay. But we'll come back to this one again. And then, so even in the frontal view, we can see that your backswing is not that large. So you're keeping here.
Yeah.
So because of this, when you start the downswing, you have to drag it using the muscles. When you have enough speed, and then you can release it, but with not much backswing, and then try to drag it. And then, so when you use a more upper body driven swing, then what happens is this is the whole body center of mass motion here, this red dot here. So center of mass goes slightly up, diagonally up, and then diagonally down here and up. But this actually has to be lower than the initial position here. So you have to drop the center of mass so that you can nicely use your leg.
Yeah.
So in this one, but at top of action, your center of mass is a lot higher than the initial position. This is the pelvis center of mass. Again, it goes down, but at top of action, it stays quite high. That means you have intentional push, almost a jumping like action here. So normally, when we interact with the ground, so the force coming from the ground, the arrow here, this shows the ground reaction force.
Yeah, right.
So this is the reaction to your force to the ground. But in the vertical direction, the force can be equal to the body weight. Like when you're just standing,
Right, yeah.
then your body weight and the ground reaction force will be equal to each other. When you push harder, then you have net positive force. If you don't push harder, so then the ground reaction force becomes smaller than the body weight. It's called the unweighting. So basically, in the vertical direction, we repeat push, unweight, push, unweight. With that, we have an active interaction with the ground.
Right.
But if you don't drop the center of mass enough here, that means you're not allowing much unweighting. Okay. Then you have an intentional push to the ground, and then so you try to have almost a jump off type motion.
And that's during my backswing that I'm doing that.
No, it's in the downswing. So you have the so by actually this high point is when the pelvis rotation is completed, and this low point is when the club becomes vertical in the frontal view.
Got it.
So that's the low point here. But when you drop this more, then you can easily generate reasonable amount of force by slowing down the downward motion. Because initially when you drop, you let your body drop, but later you have to slow this down by pushing. Otherwise your body will collapse, right? So first let the body drop, and then by pushing the ground, you're slowing this down. With that, you generate the maximum force.
Okay.
So it's not from intentional jumping off type action.
Right.
So when you push too hard here intentionally, then at impact, you will see the force goes way below the the body weight. So you will have unweighting, a lot of unweighting at impact.
I see.
So your body is almost leaving the ground. So from the center of mass and pelvis center of mass pattern here, you do have intentional jumping-like action here. And then pelvis motion here. So the lower graph shows angular motion, rotational motion.
Okay.
This shows translational motion.
Okay.
And then the red line is rotation. So initially during the backswing, you have a right rotation and then left rotation.
Yep.
So the rotation you have in the backswing and then the position at impact, these are fairly well balanced here. So in terms of pelvis rotation, it's normal. And then the blue line is a lateral tilt. The pelvis goes this way here. So during the backswing, because the right side is high, left side is lower, so you have left tilt all the way here, and then right tilt. And then at impact, the lead side is slightly higher than the trail side. This is normal, but you can increase this a bit more.
Okay.
So, and then by supporting the right side well and then dropping the left side, you can have a bit more. So I usually recommend 20 degrees or more lateral tilt.
Got it.
And then this blue line here shows up and down motion of the pelvis. So it goes down up to this point and then starts moving up. But here you have a fairly large upward motion here. That means you're pushing the ground more than necessary. So you have a jumping off type action here. This peak is reasonable at the end of pelvis rotation. And then the green line shows the toward and away motion. And you have slight away motion here, and then toward motion all the way to impact. But this away motion should be a bit more. So this line has to go down here. So you need to move the pelvis a bit more and then start moving toward. So when you move away and then bring this back to the initial position, it's called the recentering. So you have initial shift away and then recenter and then keep moving toward the target when the pelvis rotates toward the target. But you don't have much initial away motion here. Because your interest is bring this high up and then try to hit it hard with the muscles.
Yeah.
This is X factor here. So I'll remove these two lines here. Just highlight this. So X factor means the separation between the shoulders and the hips here. So initially, about here, the X factor becomes 0 because these two lines are parallel to each other. So no angle between them. But then after that, the shoulder turns more. So then you start seeing this X shape forming up here. So this angle is called the X factor. But what we can see here is from here to here, up to this point, the X factor is increasing rapidly here, but the slope changes here. So there is a change in motion. So usually when this happens, so initially you have a quick rotation of the whole body, the hips and shoulders all go, and then later, so you cannot go any further in terms of pelvis. Then you start turning the shoulder, but here you have a change in slope here. But a better pattern is you have a continuous separation all the way to top of backstring here. But initially, so this reflects more shoulder-driven swing. So initially, your shoulder goes early here, then you cannot go any further, then the whole thing rotates together. Yeah, that's why the slope goes a bit flatter. So when you start the backswing, it's important to use first the lead leg here. By using the lead leg, you push the ground, and then with that, you start the backswing, and then push the ground to go with the trail leg. Then you have active backswing, continuous backswing. But this is more just turning the upper body and bring this high up here. So that's what I see here. And then kinematic sequence. These are all based on angular velocity patterns. So the red line is the pelvis, and then green is thorax, blue is the shoulders, and then gray is the arms, and then this is the club here. So as I said, club reaches peak angular velocity here in the middle of the backswing here. That means the body parts reach peak angular velocity earlier. So this is when your pelvis angular velocity becomes the maximum here. And then the thorax here, shoulders here. So they reach peak angular velocity early because you start the backswing with the shoulders here. You have an early action here. But then, so the club reaches peak angular velocity in the middle of the backswing here. But if you delay this, so the body parts reach peak angular velocity about in the middle point here. Then the arms go later, the club goes later. So you have initial quick rotation of the shoulders here, which is a sort of normal pattern for those who are relying on the muscles. And then this pink line again is the wrist angular velocity. And the wrist peak angular velocity occurs here. But in the downswing, so the negative side for the wrist angular velocity is the cocking. Positive is the uncocking. Then your uncocking starts at the top of action here. So go up, and then at the top, you start with the uncocking. But this has to be delayed. In order to use the wrist well, then this has to be delayed here. So uncocking starts about here. But you are starting uncocking early.
Yeah.
So this is called the early release. So you don't have much wrist cock initially,
Right.
yeah, to start with, and then you're also starting uncocking early.
I'm just losing all of
Yeah. So
what I have.
this pattern is called the early release pattern.
Okay.
But you need to, if you can delay this a bit more, then it's beneficial. But for that, then you have to give more club motion. But because you are going into a crossover alignment, when you have a bigger backswing, then it gives you more crossover. So you don't want to go there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why you cut it a bit short.
Yeah.
So that during your backswing, what you should feel is you have to drop the club head behind your bag a little bit.
Okay.
So initially you can go higher, but the drop here.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you start with the flat backswing and then try to lift this up along the way, then automatically the right elbow goes high and then the club shows a crossover alignment.
I see. Is that more external rotation on my trail shoulder?
So external rotation, and also for the forearm should be supination.
Oh, and supination.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
When you have a good supination here,
Yeah.
you will be able to bring the club head lower.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's okay to go initially a bit higher, but actually when you start the backswing here, feel this one-piece motion here instead of turning the shoulder early.
Yeah.
So one-piece motion, and then when you throw this along the swing plane, and you can easily go to this position here.
Yeah.
But when you try to bring this here and then try to hit hard here,
Yeah.
you're lifting this,
Yeah.
and then the club goes to a crossover alignment. Yeah. So the timing of the peak angular velocity in the downswing, these are slightly after early downswing when the club is aligned vertically. So the timing is slightly late, but this is okay. You are losing the pelvis angular velocity quite a bit because you're pushing the ground and have almost a jumping-like action. But then the gray line is the arms, but the arms also should lose angular velocity a lot. But because you don't have much wrist motion toward the impact, so the arms do not lose that much, and that means that your wrist angular velocity does not increase that much here. So you have you can improve your wrist motion a lot. And then this is the transition. This shows the transition sequence here. So we see the tendency of cluster the transition of the pelvis and the thorax together, and the shoulders, arms, and the club together here. So this should be more well spaced and then sequential. But you have a cluster transition of pelvis and the thorax together, and then the shoulders, arms, and the club together, because you're trying to pull this down here. So in order to increase the transition time and also develop well-spaced sequential transition, in the backswing you should have a good momentum here. Moving the using the momentum and throw this so that you don't have to go this here. When you pretty much throw the club, then club momentum will bring the club here enough, right? And then because of the momentum, it cannot move in this direction that much. But if you are lifting this up here, then you can introduce this off-plane motion quite a bit.
I see.
So the maximum wrist cocking occurs at the top of backswing here. So this is beginning of uncocking here. And then let's see how you interact with the ground here. Let me change the scale here a little bit. So the middle one is the forces. The red line is combined force. Blue is the force acting on the right side or trail side. And then green is the force acting on the lead side here. And as you can see, at the beginning of backswing, you have almost the equal amount of force acting on both sides here. actually you have a bit more force on the trail side here. But actually, this is kind of interesting. When you have this short swing time, slide over 800 milliseconds, usually that means you have really faster backswing. That faster backswing has to come from your legs.
Right.
So that means at the beginning of the backswing, you should actually have more force acting on the lead side here.
Push.
Using that, you promote this initial shift away
Okay.
by using this, and then
Yeah.
shift away,
Yeah.
and then push this so that you can have a continuous
Right.
backswing. But already you have more force acting on the trail side here. And then also around here, when the club is parallel to the ground, at this point, this red line should go up higher.
Oh, okay.
So you should have a clear push here. This is one body weight line. And initially you have a bit more force than the body weight, so you have initial active push here. But this is when you have to have a good active push.
Okay.
And then it's mainly coming from the trail side push here. So here the red line should go higher. You need to have clear push here. And also it has to mainly come from the trail side.
Okay.
And the trail side push should reach a peak around here.
Okay.
But it's increasing all the way to here.
Okay.
So initially, you're not using the legs actively to start the backswing.
Okay.
It's because you try to bring this up here.
Okay.
And then after that, we have this unrating here. So the force goes below the body weight. This is unrating, followed by push here. Now, this is when the club aligns vertically here. So this is usually when you have maximum force. So your maximum force reaches about here, slightly after that. But more importantly, so this is elite man's average. You're generating a lot more force here. But when you generate this much force, it's over 2 times your body weight. It's too much. Then after that, at impact, you will see this unrating here. At impact here, the force goes below the body weight line because you push too much here. Because the goal here is not jumping. If your goal is jumping, then you maximize this force, and then you lose this force completely here. But your goal is not to jump, but you stay on the ground, keep working with the ground and promote rotational motion. Then if you push too much here, then you have unrating here. So and the timing is a bit late. So this timing has to come from slowing downward of the downward motion. So usually at this point, your center of mass will be at the low point here. When you drop the center of mass good from here to here, then during the downward motion, your body is moving downward, but you cannot just continue that. In that case, you will collapse, right? So in order to slow this down, you start pushing the ground with the lead leg. With that, the force increases, and then you reach the peak force. That's all you need.
I see.
So it's not coming from active push, and then jumping, but rather imagine you are landing. When you land, you try to slow down the downward motion. With that, you're pushing the ground good here.
Got it.
So that's how you develop maximum force, and you don't need to generate this much force. This is too much. Generally, the peak is associated with curve speed, but this is too much. Now, the lower one is the so-called moment arm or lever arm here, so which is basically the separation between the center of mass and this force arrow here. So this is the combined force here. This is the center of rotation of the whole body. And then this gap here is called the moment arm or lever arm. So imagine you have a wrench running this way. Okay, the body of wrench is running this way. You're holding this point and push this up. So this distance is called the moment arm. So when you multiply the moment arm and your force, that gives the torque you generate in the frontal plane. And so your maximum torque occurs about here. This is about too early here. Okay, the maximum torque should occur somewhere here. So when the club is making about 45-degree angle, around here, you need to have maximum torque. But this is too early. And then, so soon after that, the force passes through the center of mass. So no momentum, zero momentum, zero torque. And after that, the direction changes. Now the force will stay on the right side of the center of mass.
Right.
Then that gives a torque in the opposite direction, counterclockwise direction.
Yep.
Now the wrench is this way here, and you're holding it here and then push up.
Yep.
Then it gives a counterclockwise
Yep.
torque. And then you are increasing the torque here. And what you do really well is here, this type of backswing, your torque is close to elite man's average maximum. And then this one still is during the unrating phase here, using the momentum here. You have long momentum here, because this force is quite well inclined.
Yeah.
It's because of the horizontal force coming from the trail side here. So you're pushing the ground well in the horizontal direction. With you're creating this inclination, so you have long momentum. With that, you have this much torque here. Your longest momentum occurs here, your maximum torque occurs here. So at this point, although the momentum is decreasing, but your force is now increasing rapidly. So this gives the best combination of the momentum and your force. So you have maximum. So in terms of torque generation, you are doing well here. Because pretty much your average torque from the top of backswing to the EDA, this is equal to elite man's average maximum. So this torque is really good. You're generating good amount of torque. So this is your strength. Okay? But as you can see, the peak force is a bit delayed. Particularly, the peak force coming from the lead foot is delayed here. No need to push this much. Okay? Okay, again, maximum force is generally coming from slowing down of the downward motion, rather intentional jumping motion here. Yeah. So the timing will be a bit earlier, and then you don't have to generate this much force. So when you generate this much force, that means you are putting a lot of effort. Okay. So normally when you have good push here, then because of that you will have unweighting. And then when you continue unweighting and push, then you will reach peak force by slowing down the low body, downward motion. However, here you don't have much push and much unweighting here.
Yeah.
So this unweighting is just to generate this large force here. This is too much. So basically what you need to have is a more stepping-like action here. So initially at the beginning of the backswing, you have good push from the leader side, and then during the backswing, you have a good trail side push, and in the downswing, good leader side push. So when you have a clear peak here, and then these two forces will cross here. So more force from the leader side push, trail side push here, and the leader side push. So when you have this rhythmic stepping-like action, you don't have to push it that hard. But in terms of torque generation, you are doing well here. You're generating sufficient torque in the frontal plane. So basically, this is what I see here. And then, so to inspire you, I will show you another pattern here. Yeah, the stepping drills are really useful. It just develops a natural rhythmic motion. This is Grant Waite. He's a former PGA Tour player. And his speed is 114, so it's a bit lower than yours. But as you can see, his peak occurs on the right side of the backswing here, right? So the peak occurs here. That means if we go to the kinematic sequence here, so his pelvis peak occurs here, and then the thorax and shoulders here. So these are happening almost at midpoint of the backswing. So the arms later and the club later here. And in the transition phase, you see this one here.
Yeah, beautiful.
Good sequential transition. Pelvis, thorax, shoulders, arms, and club here. And also the transition phase is long enough here. So in order to do that, you have to have a really active momentum here. So instead of just lifting this up quickly using the arms, throw it so that your upper body keeps rotating. And then when the pelvis rotates in the opposite direction, you'll have good separation between the hips and shoulders, right?
Yep.
So this is typically what we see when you really have active body motion here.
I see.
So it's more body-driven backswing
Yep.
than shoulder or arm-driven backswing here. And then swing plane, the top view here. The two planes are well aligned toward the target here. And these are parallel to each other. And then swing plane here. So along the swing plane here, the club head moves along the swing plane. They make a nice looping motion. And then once downswing starts, it quickly comes toward the swing plane here. And the really clean planar motion here. And then it goes reasonably above the swing plane here. And then, as you can see, the green line here, it quickly drops here. During the transition phase, it decreases this much. In the early part of downswing, it keeps decreasing. So here, the club head is moving faster to the swing plane than the hands. So that's why this keeps decreasing here. Instead of staying here and the later is coming down. And then center of mass motion here. So he has a more lateral motion, so away motion. In your case, you were just directly going diagonally up here. But he initially has a away motion, and then going up diagonally down and diagonally up here. And then this low point is lower than the initial position here. Pelvis, again, reasonably balanced here. He has more lateral tilt. And then you see he has initially shift away and then recentering here. And then as the pelvis starts rotating toward the target, it keeps moving toward the target here. And then X factor, it keeps increasing all the way to a top of action here. So we saw kinematic. And then in his case, this is wrist angular velocity, but so this is cocking. But during the early part of downswing, he develops more cocking velocity here. So instead of letting it go away from your body and the arms here, he has more cocking on the way down. This is called the down cocking. And then his uncocking starts here. So this goes above man's average, and then club angular velocity goes above man's average. So in his case, the club angular velocity is a big portion of it is coming from the wrist motion. So this swing is a lot more efficient than you're using the whole body to drag hard versus let it go. Yeah, so that's a big difference here. The 7 and 8 are separated more in this case here. And then the frontal plane mechanics here. So in his case, you see, initially he has more force from the lead leg here. With this, he's starting the backswing, the initial shift away motion, and we see clear push about here, and then maximum push from the trail side here. So lead side push at the beginning, trail side push here, and then lead side push here. And so his peak torque occurs here. When the club is here. And then he's rapidly increasing the momentum here by inclining the force arrow, like this. Yeah. So this is top of action. He already generates torque equal to elite man's average maximum. At the beginning of downswing, he goes more here. So this is when he has the longest momentum. So first the peak here. And then second peak is coming from the best combination of the momentum and the force here. So this is maximum. Again, he maintains good amount of torque here from the top of action to EDA 7. So in terms of the average torque, is similar to yours.
Yeah.
Now, his peak force is less than 2 times the body weight here. This is about 1.85, but you are exceeding 2 times your body weight.
Yeah.
And then this is coming from at the low point here.
Yep.
And then it's coming from slowing down of the downward motion. So at impact, the force still stays above the body weight here.
Yeah.
No unweighting here.
I see.
Yeah. So these show us some different patterns here. So this is probably the best pattern that I've seen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then you can see that the unweighting starts from here.
Yeah.
Is continuous all the way to this.
Wow.
So this initial part of unweighting up to 5 here, this is coming from the slowdown of the upward motion. So you have unweighting at the end of the upward motion and also at the beginning of downward motion. So when you do a downhill skiing, you have to push the ground, the snow hard, then your body moves up, and toward the end of the upward motion, you have unweighting, so not much force here.
Right.
Also, when you drop, let your body drop, at the beginning of the downward motion, you still have unweighting. That's when you move the blade.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
When there's a large force and you try to move your ski,
Yeah, it's not.
you fall.
Yeah.
But when you have good push and unweighting, and then during the unweighting phase, you move the ski like this, like the mogul skiing.
Yeah, like skiing moves. Yeah, exactly. Unweighting.
They're really rhythmic motion, right?
Right.
So for that, they should have a active push and unweighting repeating.
Yeah.
During the unweighting phase, you're moving the ski
Yeah.
because there's not much force acting, so it's easier to move. But a large force is acting, and then when you try to move the ski,
Yeah.
you just lose the balance and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has good continuous unweighting all the way, and then push. This push is coming from slowing down of the downward motion. So the key here is developing good rhythmic motion. Yeah. So by using stepping like action.
Yeah, because in my backswing, I didn't really have any of that push. And then
So
I couldn't really unweight either there.
let's see, how much time do we have? Let's say about 40 minutes, and then practice on the two-step swing drills.
Okay.
Yeah. With that, you will be able to feel the flow,
Okay.
and that will give you good rhythmic motion. Okay. Any questions?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, then.
Lower body.